Is your child having a meltdown or throwing a tantrum? Learning the difference completely changed the way that I interact with my son, and it can definitely do the same for you. I remember when I used to confuse my son's meltdowns with his tantrums. I really wish someone had told me what I'm about to share with you today. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to tell the difference and how to respond in a way that helps your child without the guilt, the second guessing, or before I learned the difference, I thought every cry or outburst was a tantrum. But tantrums actually have a goal. Tantrums happen when a child wants something but doesn't get it. Tantrums are often tied to attention seeking or being frustrated about boundaries or limits. For example, think of when a child really wants their iPad. They may start crying, screaming, stomping, or doing some other kind of behavior to get your attention and then ultimately get what they want. One thing to remember about tantrums is that once a child gets what they want, the tantrum stops. Now let's talk about meltdowns. Meltdowns used to make me freeze like a deer in headlights, especially when they happen in public. Oftentimes when people see children having meltdowns, they just think that they need better discipline. When I finally realized what a meltdown was, everything changed. One of the most important things to realize is that a meltdown is not a choice. A meltdown can be triggered by sensory overload. So think of the 5 senses. When you think about the sense of sight, it could be too many bright lights. When you think about the sense of smell, it can be a fragrance that's just too much for your child or a fragrance that they're not used to smelling. When you think about the sense of touch, it could be the tag on the back of a sweater that really irritates a child and causes them to have a meltdown. When you think about the sense of hearing, loud sounds or even softer sounds that your child is not used to hearing, that can cause a meltdown. Meltdowns can also be caused by being exhausted or tired, being emotionally overwhelmed, a change in routine, or even transitioning from one activity to another. I have given some examples of things that might cause meltdowns in this video, but keep in mind that every child is different. Your child might be having meltdowns for reasons that I have not talked about in this video. Think about a busy city where there are horns honking, sirens blaring, and crowds of people moving in every direction. It can really be too much for a child with autism to process all at once. In that moment, it's not about control or getting something that they want. It's about escaping the overload and the overwhelm. One of the main things to remember about a meltdown is that when it happens, your child is not in control. Oftentimes, they won't be able to stop their behavior right away. They'll need some time to decompress. I remember the moment that I found out the difference between a meltdown and I remember the moment that I learned the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum. It was really a game changer. Remember, a tantrum happens because a child wants something. It can also happen because a child is testing limits. But with a meltdown, your child is overwhelmed. They can be overwhelmed by their emotions, their environment, or so many other reasons. A tantrum stops when a child gets what they want or absolutely realizes that they will not get what they want with the behavior that they're displaying. But a meltdown continues until a child gets the time and support that they need in order to recover. A tantrum is controlled and goal-oriented, while a meltdown is uncontrollable, and it means that your child is overwhelmed. I wish that I had known this sooner because it changed the way that I viewed my child's behavior. I went from being overwhelmed and frustrated to seeing my child's behavior as communication. Trying to treat a meltdown like a tantrum just adds more stress to both you and your child and can often make it worse. Understanding the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum helps you to know when to just stand firm in your boundaries and when your child just needs additional support. It allows you to respond with more confidence and less frustration. Once I made this shift, I saw my son's meltdowns get less intense and shorter. Here's what works. For tantrums, stay calm and firm. Don't get drawn into a power struggle. Don't give in, but teach emotional regulation instead. Use simple language. Don't try to give a lecture. For meltdowns, remove whatever sensory input might be causing the meltdown. If the lights are too bright, dim the lights. If there's too much noise, either turn the noise down or move to an area that's quieter. You can also offer a safe, quiet space or a calm down toy or tool that your child enjoys. Avoid long explanations. Just let your child know that they're safe and you're here for them. Give your child time to recover. It's important not to rush them through the process. Overall, just know that whether your child is having a meltdown or a tantrum, both of these are normal parts of child development, and it doesn't mean that you're a bad parent, doesn't mean that you're a bad mom. It actually just means that your child is going through the phases of childhood. Have you ever confused tantrums with meltdowns? I'd love to hear your experience in the comments. Now that you know the difference between tantrums and meltdowns, in our next video, we're going to talk about the biggest mistake that parents make when handling their autistic child's meltdowns. Have you ever confused meltdowns with tantrums? I'd love to hear your experience in the comments below. Now that you know the difference between tantrums and meltdowns, in our next video, we're going to discuss the biggest mistakes that parents make when handling their autistic children's meltdowns.